1. Welcome to That Canadian Podcast. Before we go straight into today's episode, I am your host, Noah.
And I'm your co-host, Gabby.
We thought what better than to dive way back in time into the original video game that was first ever created, that being Tennis for Two by William Higginbottom. Back in the late 1950s, William Higginbottom developed the game, but before we go into too much detail, why don't we go ahead and discuss what we found. Video gaming entered the mainstream during the 1970s and 1980s with the rise of arcade machines, home consoles, and computer games. The early history of video games spans from the first interactive electronic display in 1947 and the emergence of true video
Emerge.
games. Yeah, that word. And the video game of true video games. Whoa, in the early 1950s to the advent of arcade gaming in the 1970s.
Video games started coming to life after the very first screen-based game was made in 1947. In the early 1950s, games like Birdie the Brain and Nimrod were created more as tech experiments more than they were for fun. Research- Researchers used them to test out early programming and see how many people interacted with computers. This kicked off some of the first actual video games, like OXO and a checkers game by Christopher Strachey, which was among the very first to use screens.
Now, back in 1958, back in the 1958. God, that's very specific. Back in 1958, a physicist named William Higginbottom, who people now call the grandfather of video games, ended up making a game called Tennis for Two, completely by accident. He was messing around with an old government computer and realized he could show a tennis ball flying through the air, wind and all. He and his tech guy, Robert Drafik? I'm
I
sorry if
actually
I'm
don't even
pronouncing
know how to
that.
pronounce it, but it's
Yeah,
okay. It's
Robert
okay.
D. Let's go with that. Robert D. built the game in just 3 weeks using simple metal paddles for controllers. These metal paddles were quite literally what we see as a joystick today, with a button and a little knob thingy. It was a hit at a science fair, but then disappeared for years until Higginbottom mentioned it in the late 70s during a legal battle over who really invented video games.
William William Higginbottom was born in 1910 and sadly passed away in 1994. He was involved in some major scientific milestones. During World War II, he led the electronics team for the Manhattan Project, helping build the first nuclear bomb. He also worked on radar systems for military bombers, but after the war, he helped start the Federation of American Scientists and became its first leader, pushing for nuclear safety and responsible science.
Federal, I was gonna say that's whoa. Okay, I guess it's per country then. Ah, interesting. I mean, it could make sense,
Sir,
right?
Federation.
Did you know that before Higginbottom died, he was quoted saying the following: "The instruction book that came with the computer described how to plot trajectories and bouncing shapes for research. I thought, hell, this would make a good game." Working with his colleague Dave Potter at the time, back obviously in 1958 when he originally created the game on accident. It took me 4 hours to design one. It took me 4 hours to design one and a technician a couple of weeks to put it together. Everybody stood in line at the open house, that being the science fair. The other exhibits were pretty static, obviously. The game seemed to me sort of an obvious thing. Even if I wanted to patent it, that being the legal battle, the game would have belonged to the government. Obviously, because it was on a government computer, right?
So what I guess with all this being said, I guess what would have happened with the whole legal battle?
I mean, I would have assumed that he would have been declared the creator uh, of video games as we see it today.
Mm-hmm.
At least I assume. Because, I mean, the legal battle that they're talking about is between whether or not you can or cannot patent a video game. which obviously you can
Right.
nowadays. But I mean, for him, it didn't really make any sense to do that because it still belonged to the government.
So with it being at a what was it? What did we say it was? A science fair?
Yeah.
I wonder, did we ever find out what place he got?
No, I don't think that we did. I don't think that it was ever recorded anywhere, at least that I could find. However, I bet you it was recorded somewhere, and I bet you he probably would have placed in the top three, 100%. I imagine
I
he was
just
pretty ecstatic about making it.
I just can't imagine just wanting to look at a government computer and just thinking, "Hey, let me just make a game."
Honestly, I feel that. I feel that. I really do. I mean, every now and then, I look at my computer. I'm like, what if I just make a game? Like what if I just spend hours and hours on here? This guy did it in a matter of weeks. Not even
I just
just
can't imagine.
yeah, video games nowadays, they take years to develop.
So
This
not
guy did it
only
in
did he
weeks.
create the first game, but if you really think about it, just the whole, he had metal paddles for controls. I mean, he also created everything. He created a game. He created, the very first controller
Mhm.
even. Like that's a lot just for one person to do.
Yeah. Yeah, no, he really shaped video games as we see it today. Definitely without him, we wouldn't have been in this spot today by
Mm,
far. Like just having that impact on the world is huge. Even if, you know, it's not something that you wanted, it's still massive to be.
right.
It's I imagine that it's a great honor of his. I
And then the
mean,
fact that he was just, I mean, obviously he had so much knowledge with having to work with nuclear bombs and, just, becoming a leader. Obviously not federation.
yep. Yep.
um, but it's just crazy just thinking how much your mind actually works.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's massive. It's it's unbelievable sometimes, like generally unbelievable. And even during him leading the electronics team for the Manhattan Project, he was quite literally at the heart of it because the electronics team were the ones creating the wires, the timers, everything. Right? To get
Right.
a better scope of it, watching Oppenheimer really dives into it. Even if it doesn't mention him, it still dives into how it was created and how it was set up. It's a big, humongous pleasure, I would imagine, just to be even considered the grandfather of video games. It's it's unbelievable sometimes. Like even looking
It's one of
over
those
our
things
our
where
sheet.
I know as humans, we don't reach our full capacity of our brain.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't think I would be smart enough to sit here and create a video game.
No, literally. Yeah. Especially after World War II as well. Like with everything that happened, I understand, a lot of our scientific breakthroughs, excuse me, happen during wartime, but a video game? I mean, that's pretty big. That's
What
pretty
what
big.
what do you think would happen if someone were to make a new game on, military computers today?
I
Probably same thing
imagine
or
I imagine that I I mean, I imagine that there are quite a few that have been. Now, legal games, I don't know. Games that have
Right.
made the life and been released to the public, that's a different story. Cuz I guarantee you that there 100% have been. And there are conspiracy theories out there that a lot of our like first person combat games are made by the government,
Right.
to see which person would be good in certain scenarios if they had to pick them, right? Kind of like that one episode of Johnny Test where he buys a video game and he places first overall and the military comes into his house. Stop laughing.
Don't hit
It's
me.
a
I don't even
very
know what that
vivid
is. I don't know what
scene.
that is.
It's a kids show
Oh,
and the military bursts into his house and his parents are confused on what's going on and they take him. They take him to go fight a war in an electronics suit because he placed first. They track everything. That's what those conspiracy theories are about. I mean, you know, I bet you William wasn't thinking that video games would be what it is today.
I can't imagine the things that was going through his mind through all this. Not only were you smart enough to create a game, to create a controller, to do, everything that you did, let
Hmm.
alone, taking it to a science fair, and now it's becoming a major hit.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Do you think he got in trouble for that?
I
Actually, now that I
imagine
think about it,
so. I
just
imagine
bringing
so.
it to a science fair in general.
I imagine so. But even then, I imagine that he probably found an old computer that they discarded, excuse me, into a garbage can, and he brought that home and recreated it. At least that's
Wow.
what I imagine. But then again, I don't imagine the government discarding a computer like that, especially with
Right.
everything that was inside. You know, those parts you could still reuse, right? Whereas a computer nowadays, something breaks inside, you open it up, and the motherboard is snapped. Well, there goes your entire computer now, right?
Right.
Whereas back then, something broke, you open it up, you just got to replace this giant ass tube in it, and there, boom, done. But I imagine he probably got in trouble. But
Uh,
I mean, honestly, for his reputation, I wouldn't care if I got in trouble. Knowing if I was him, knowing my reputation today of what I did, I would not care about getting in trouble.
I mean, he probably cared at the time, right?
Probably. Yeah, probably did.
I wonder how much, he actually got in trouble for.
Yeah, I mean, he probably got in trouble for misusing a government computer or,
I didn't even think about that. Wait.
yeah,
Because that means that you had to sit there and like really think about, oh man, maybe I should go past what I'm supposed to be doing to do something that is just for fun.
yeah, yeah. Because he was even quoted saying, "What if I just do this? Hell, this will make a good game, right?"
Wow.
That's not even a oh, I'm gonna see where this goes. That's just I'm gonna do whatever I want.
And it's also crazy to think about how not only is, tennis for two, obviously tennis for two, but there's so many different games that now almost react the same way with that, like let's just say like air hockey, for
Yeah,
example,
yeah,
where you have to hit it back and forth and try to stop the, well, I guess technically the puck from going in, but the ball.
yeah.
Um, I mean, I'm sure that there's multiple other ones I'm just not thinking of this moment, but that's
No,
probably also
yeah.
what invented like table tennis and tennis in general, and or probably not tennis in general. Let me rephrase that: table tennis or
I
pong.
imagine that table tennis was around before.
You think so?
I would think so.
I really don't. I don't know anything about tennis, to be quite honest with you. I just
I
know about tennis for two.
I mean, I would imagine it being around. I don't know if it would be, but I picture it being around before.
I would think so.
Definitely.
I would love to know actually.
I would too. I very much would too. I mean,
Oh no, tennis was invented in 1877.
1877. What about table tennis?
We said that earlier,
No, we
didn't we?
said no. You just said tennis. We never talked about table tennis.
Oh, table tennis. Okay, hold on. Table tennis. Let's see. Let's see. It actually became an Olympic sport. I didn't know it was an Olympic sport.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow, I'm terrible at knowing everything apparently. Um, it says 1860s to 1870s.
So it came around before.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that's that's big.
Well, what's crazier to me is that it's an Olympic sport and I just never knew about it.
Yeah, you know, even just growing up, right? Growing up in the early 2000s and now, experiencing video games as a legitimate sport is crazy to think of too, right? You got esports, for instance. People are considering that a legitimate sport. That's crazy to think about.
Wait, what? I guess I'm out of the blue on all this now.
I mean, you sounds like you are. It sounds like you are.
I mean,
But like even in school, we had you know esports teams.
we
Like
didn't. Oh, you're also a lot younger than me.
yeah, and I'm also Canadian though.
That's true.
Yeah, but even then, it's massive to think of that things that we considered to just be you know time passers are now sports. Like I bet you William didn't think of that.
Probably not.
Like in all honesty, I bet you his mind was that you know just finishing the day's work, getting home to his wife and kids, and
If
drinking.
all this was done beforehand, do you think that maybe he actually played tennis?
I would imagine so.
Because, like, why would you want to create a game if you don't play it?
I would imagine so. Yeah. I mean, I would think so because even during the movie Oppenheimer, right? Sure,
Yeah.
they had to change some things to make it legal, but at the same time, a lot of the settings that they set themselves in were the correct places, right? And
Right.
their main post of operations was in the middle of butt fuck nowhere in a desert,
Hmm.
right? Which obviously developed massively, but I would imagine there's not much to do out there, right?
He
I
didn't
mean,
play
you
tennis.
got drinking, you got poker, gambling, you know, what else are you supposed to do? I
Right.
probably almost guarantee you that he played some sort of tennis. I mean, you're in the middle of butt fuck nowhere. Why wouldn't you?
I mean, he probably did for fun, but it does say that he didn't like actually like play it. Play it.
Yeah, but even then, that is something good to consider because I don't even know for myself. Hmm.
I'm just shocked that he actually made a controller too. Like, I'm not shocked, but I'm also shocked because it's almost like if you're using a government computer, was there not like a way to also like how we are today, WASD, your mount or probably, I mean, they're probably what, like old style?
Yeah, I would imagine so, but it's probably. I mean, I guess he probably needed something to be more accurate, and
Right.
that's why he created it, right? Because sure, WASD can be accurate, but at the same time, you know, if you just press W, right, on your keyboard, you go forward, right? You don't inch forward. With a controller, you can inch forward, right? You don't just blurt forward. You can inch forward however you want. So I imagine that's why he created a controller.
Right. And it just makes you like really think of how it was back then, playing on that and the sensitivity and
Oh yeah.
just all of that.
Oh yeah. 100%. Yeah. I imagine that it is big. Like even just watching videos of them, just watching people play it, the controller itself that it was made from is massive. Like it's
Right.
not small, it is massive, especially to today's standards with things that we use. It's massive. It's pretty big. It's not small at all. Like it definitely has its size, 100%. But
Mm.
I mean, so do a lot of
I
things
just
too.
I really wish I was there to like really see the public's reaction. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? During the science fair, having them watch it. I think of immediately Meet the Robinsons because I'm a Disney kid. But you know what I mean? Just thinking about, having someone up there showing you this and you're just like, wow, I can't believe someone thought about this. I want to play it. You know what I mean? Just
Yeah.
really like having to be there. That must have been like so like I don't even know the correct word.
Big for him.
I mean, yeah,
Uh,
exhilarating. There we go.
yeah.
I couldn't think of the word.
Yeah.
Exhilarating words.
Even for his family too, I bet you. Right?
Mm,
Like
right.
I guarantee you that it brought unwanted fame and unwanted attention that he definitely did not want.
And just right, exactly. And just him doing this because he just, wanted to for himself, not really seeing it, the bigger picture
Mm-hmm.
of it possibly going bigger than what it actually was.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I wonder
No,
if like now I'm also wondering if he was like involved in other game related projects besides just Tennis for Two. That's something I feel like we may have to look at for the future.
I I imagine that he probably was at some point, or probably was offered 100%. Because I mean, with his mind, I don't think that somebody would have just let it go. I imagine that somebody would have offered him a nice amount of money.
Do you think that if he didn't have, that scientific background that he would be able to invent it?
I don't know. Put yourself in his shoes right now.
Mhm.
With you today, would you be able to?
I'm too dumb.
So then probably not. Probably not then.
I can't be a scientist.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean that's obvious.
oh, thanks.
Yeah, you're
Thanks. I
welcome. You're welcome.
appreciate that.
Yeah, no, you're welcome. You're welcome.
I mean, I really don't think he could though. And I don't want that to sound terrible, but you have to have a lot of scientific background in order to create something like that.
Yeah, you
Because you have
do.
to go the science of everything, how to make it work, how to put things together. Um, just the entire part of putting all this together. I mean, you have to have that background, I feel like.
Yeah, no, 100%. And even then, I I wonder what he felt like when, his life was coming to an end, reflecting on everything. I wonder what he felt.
Right. And then I also remembered that, we talked about what was it? Some of the other first games like Birdie the Brain and Nimrod.
Yeah.
First off, I would love to learn about those because I've never even heard of to be quite honest, Birdie the Brain. But, then it makes me feel like, how's it different from the other earlier games?
Yeah.
And, the scientific background of those versus Tennis for Two.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
So
I
that's something fun to be looking forward to
yeah.
also.
And even then, Pong played a big role into being created off of this because
Mhm.
they follow similar kind of physics.
Right.
But that's obviously a future episode.
I would also love to know the background of it as well, as far as, like maybe if they shared a little bit more of like the challenges that they faced while trying to make this game and
Hmm.
not just, we made it, it was a hit, it was amazing. I love having that background of, the challenges that they faced with it.
Yeah. No, seriously. But unfortunately, it is that time. We have hit our end for today.
Okay.
We will have more episodes coming. It's definitely not going to be the end or the last that you hear from us. At least I don't think. But
Never.
yeah.
Don't say that. Don't say that. Don't be negative.
But let's go ahead and save our progress for today. Let's wrap up our first episode of your wonderful That Canadian podcast.
Yeah.
Thank you for tuning in and geeking out with us as we deep dive into the gaming world. If you loved today's episode, make sure to follow, subscribe, and leave a comment. It helps us reach more fellow gamers. For more unedited and exclusive content, please make sure to subscribe to our Patreon. If you have games you want us to explore or a guest you would love to hear from, make sure to reach out to us or comment on our videos, either by commenting or emailing us at thatcanadianmaple@gmail.com. We want to hear from you. Until next time, stay curious, keep playing, and never stop pressing start. Game over for now.